Senate Bill 1449, which is Department of Planning and Budget establishes the Division of Regulatory Management and the Red Tape Reduction Commission and a review of the regulatory requirements. I'm going to begin by presenting a substitute. The substitute includes changes.
Second.
Okay, that's sufficient. And it's going to help reduce the fiscal.
All in favor of adopting the substitute? All opposed? Go ahead.
Okay, fantastic. So let me tell you what you just signed up for. The substitute includes changes in scope to reduce the fiscal impact and in order to focus our regulations. I just want to emphasize, we're talking about regulations, not laws here. The bill excludes from the review the courts, localities, local or regional governments, the Virginia Resource Authority, certain public higher education regulations, the State Bar, and the Corporation Commission. As you all probably saw, the last Forbes report that came out, and also the CNBC review of competitive businesses, the businesses that have done the best across the country. Virginia used to be the #1 place to do business, but we've fallen all the way to number 6 with Forbes, and all the way down to number 13 with the CNBC poll. I'd like to see Virginia back at #1, and in doing so, I looked at some of the obstacles that we had, and one of those had to do with the cost of doing business in Virginia. I think every business owner, including myself, if you ask them, what's been one of the biggest obstacles you've had in business, and that would be increased regulation. And I could probably get a couple amens from behind me back here. And I might also admit I do have the support of the NFIB and the AFB, and I'm going to have them come up at the end here and talk about this. But businesses across my district say the #1 issue from businesses are the burdensome regulations and the red tape they must battle in order to do business. And let me just give you an example. In 2016, Virginia Regulatory Code, known as the Virginia Administrative Code, contains 24 titles comprised of over 32,000 unique sections of text with 133,000 restrictions. Did you know that it would take an individual over 12 weeks to read the entire VAC? And that's according to the Mercatus Center report. Let me give you another example. The Department of Health is the biggest regulator in the Commonwealth with over 15,000 restrictions. Now, while we have no desire, and it's certainly not the goal to reduce health or safety standards, not all the restrictions are critical to health and safety. The State Water Control Board comes in second with just under 15,000 restrictions, according to the George Mason University study in January this year. And I'm going to give you another example. Prior to 2015, food trucks in Virginia were not legally allowed to operate on many roads in the state because of an old law banning vending on all state-maintained roads. Many of these state roads were safe for food trucks to operate on, but outdated statute meant food truck operators, could be fined if they did so. In the example of bipartisanship, the Republican-controlled legislature worked with the Democratic Governor of Virginia, Terry McAuliffe, to reform the statute and allow food trucks to operate on state roads. It's this type of burden that the Red Tape Reduction Act hopes to address. Another example, guests at bed and breakfasts were allowed to consume alcohol in their own rooms, but it was unclear due to regulations whether or not they could consume privately purchased alcohol in shared spaces such as the living room or porch. To make matters worse, the original rule was interpreted and enforced differently across the Commonwealth. This bill sets specific goals in reducing red tape and outdated regulations, not laws. I just want to emphasize that. State agencies impose numerous regulations on Virginia businesses and residents, and while some of these requirements are good, others are too complex, overburdensome, or simply unnecessary or outdated. Reducing red tape means Virginians can spend more time on their businesses, their hobby, or their craft, instead of wasting time on paperwork. The Red Tape Reduction Act will cut red tape in Virginia by requiring state agencies to count how many requirements they impose through regulation. After completing the count, agencies collectively will have to reduce 2 requirements for every new one they impose until there is a 35% reduction in overall amount of requirements. Agencies will then have to remove one regulatory requirement for every new one, setting an overall cap in the number of requirements. Capping the number of requirements will hopefully encourage agency staff to consider what regulations are truly necessary versus what is unneeded red tape. I would also like to thank my co-patrons, Senator Bill DeSteff, Senator Donovan, Senator Hanger, Senator Norman, Senator Odenshine, Senator Peake, Senator Reeves, Senator Stanley, Senator Sturdivant, Senator Vogel, Senator Wagner, and I'd also like to give credit to the House Companion Bill, which is Delegate Weber and Delegate Freitas, House Bill 1564.
Any questions of the paper? Sure. Senator Costello.
I'd like to ask the patron if they would see this as a friendly amendment on line 53 and line 54 for parity amongst the two houses. Us being the upper chamber, I feel we should have 2 members as well as the lower chamber having 2 members. And then on line 54, reducing the governor's appointment to 5 instead of 6. So
I would agree.
So,
Making that motion.
I'm making that motion.
Is there a second? Second. Properly moved and second that amendment. Balance all in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed? Okay. All right. Any further questions? Is anyone in opposition to
Mr.
this?
Chairman, I have a quick question.
All right.
I'm Senator Chase. I'm skimming the fiscal impact statement, and it seems kind of indeterminate to me, but it looks to me like they're saying it's going to cost at least $1 million to implement this bill. Is that right? They're kind of, if you read between the lines.
Well, I'll tell you exactly what the fiscal impact statement says. It says budget amendment necessary indeterminate. Fiscal impact estimates are preliminary, and the only cost that would be associated with this would be staffing costs. We have to bring on a couple new folks. What we've done is also we probably have to have some type of information technology cost, but total, the maximum that would possibly cost would be, my understanding is $1 million, although that's not within his,
Senator Sturdivant, this bill has been requested upstairs.
Got it.
Mr. Chairman,
Thank you. Step.
one more friendly amendment on line 211 and 212 to be consistent with the previous line amendment. We can also go with a 2 and 1. So it would be 5 from the governor. So on line 212, you would reduce the 2 to a 1. And on line 211, you would increase the 1 member from the Senate to 2.
I agree with that amendment.
All right. Second, making that motion, you seconded it. All in favor of that amendment?
Aye.
Do you wish to speak against the bill?
Yes, sir.
Well,
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Noah Sullivan, Deputy Counsel to the Governor. The administration has been interested to see the great amount of renewed interest in the Administrative Process Act that has come about at this General Assembly session. Just today, President Trump actually issued an executive order that would impose this similar type of approach to the federal government as here in Virginia. Now, as part of the Counsel's office and the Governor's office, we review regulations every single day. There is an executive branch review process set forward in the code and by executive order in which every regulation promulgated by a state agency is vetted through a complex process. It goes to the Department of Planning and Budget for scoring. It goes to the Secretary level. It goes to the Governor's office where we look at and review every single regulation. Let's talk about how much of this is actually solving a problem that exists in Virginia. Under the Governor's administration, we have had $15 billion almost of capital investment put into Virginia, a historic level. Unemployment rate has fallen more in this administration in the past 30 years.
Mr. Chairman, I'm trying to get the relevancy out of what he's discussing for the bill. He's going through just generalities on what the governor's done, and I'm trying to see how it's applicable to the bill. If he's speaking to the bill, then fine, please speak to the bill. If not, then we should have political speak outside.
Mr. Chairman, I'd be happy to say that this seems to be solving a problem of business creation and development in Virginia. We're contesting whether there is an underlying problem in Virginia with regulations. Regulations come from laws that are passed by the Assembly, many of which come from every single year. There's enactment clauses saying agencies shall promulgate. So the underlying premise of this is that there's a great problem with regulation. we believe the economy is doing well in Virginia and don't think that a radical remake of the regulatory process is a